Kepada para undangan dan peserta, mohon izin saya melepaskan masker terlebih dahulu agar apa yang saya sampaikan dapat didengar dengan jelas. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama budaya, shalom dan salam kebajikan. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Puji dan syukur kita panjatkan kehadirat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa. Berkat rahmat dan karunia-Nya kita bisa berkumpul di acara ini. Dalam acara Kuliah Umum Kamis 30 Juni 2022 yang bertempat di Aula Rektorat lantai 3. Beri tepuk tangan yang paling meriah. Selamat datang kepada yang terhormat Bapak Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Yang kami hormati Bapak Wakil Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Yang kami hormati Ketua Kerti Bali Research Center Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Yang kami hormati Bapak Koordinator Program Studi Manajemen Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata. Yang kami hormati Ibu Wakil Koordinator Program Studi Manajemen Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata. Yang kami hormati Ibu Koordinator Program Studi Akuntansi Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Yang kami hormati Ibu Wakil Koordinator Program Studi Akuntansi Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata. Yang kami hormati Ibu Koordinator Program Studi Magister Manajemen Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata, serta seluruh peserta yang hadir pada hari ini baik secara daring maupun luring. Sebelum kita memulai acara pada hari ini, mari kita simak tata tertib acara. Kepada peserta, diwajibkan mengikuti acara dari awal hingga akhir, wajib melakukan absensi di akhir acara. Bagi peserta yang mengikuti acara secara daring, wajib mengaktifkan kamera dan menonaktifkan mikrofon atau mute saat acara berlangsung. Tidak diperkenankan mengajukan pertanyaan sebelum sesi tanya jawab, tidak diperkenankan mencoret-coret PowerPoint, dan bagi yang tidak mentaati tata tertib akan mendapatkan sanksi dari panitia. Serta untuk hadirin yang berada di ruangan, diharapkan untuk tetap tenang, aktif dan kondusif dalam mengikuti kegiatan hari ini. Dengan tetap memperhatikan protokol kesehatan, serta mohon kerjasamanya selama acara berlangsung, mohon handphone dalam keadaan silent. Sebelum kita masuk ke acara selanjutnya, marilah kita menyanyikan bersama lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Kepada Saudari Cynthia, kami persilahkan untuk memimpin. Hadirin dimohon berdiri. Menyanyikan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dimohon untuk tetap berdiri, mengawali acara siang hari ini dan untuk kelancaran acara, marilah kita berdoa terlebih dahulu sesuai dengan agama dan kepercayaan masing-masing. Doa saya pimpin, berdoa dimulai. Berdoa selesai. Hadirin dipersilahkan untuk duduk kembali. Baiklah, berikutnya acara akan kita lanjutkan dengan sambutan dari Ketua Kerti Bali Research Center kepada Bapak Ibu Tuferi Karyade SPD MA, kami persilahkan.
Om Swastiastu. Yang terhormat Bapak Dekan FEBP Unhi, yang saya hormati juga Kaprodi Magister Manajemen, yang saya hormati juga Kaprodi Akuntansi, Kaprodi Manajemen, Sekprodi Akuntansi dan Manajemen, dan seluruh rekan-rekan dosen yang saya banggakan. Tidak lupa juga yang saya hormati Prof. Morris, good evening. Welcome to second time at Unhi, dan seluruh mahasiswa Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Pertama saya izin melaporkan Bapak Dekan dan rekan-rekan semua, di mana agenda hari ini merupakan agenda kolaboratif antara Kerti Bali Research Center dengan Fakultas Ekonomi, Bisnis, dan Pariwisata dengan mengusung beberapa topik terkait dengan transformasi ekonomi, terutama ekonomi Kerti Bali. Hari ini kita menghadirkan Prof. Morris, kebetulan beliau sudah menjadi keluarga besar FEBP Unhi, dan hari ini memberikan sebuah wawasan tambahan, baik itu untuk dosen maupun mahasiswa yang ada di Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Sebelum Prof. Morris nanti akan memaparkan materinya, sedikit saya bisa sampaikan bahwa nanti Prof. Morris itu banyak berbicara tentang ekonomi Kerti Bali. Tentunya di awal izinkan saya kurang lebih maksimal 5 menit memaparkan terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali. Saya rasa masih banyak yang belum pernah mendengar bahkan atau belum memahami terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali. Beberapa rekan-rekan dosen sebenarnya sudah pernah mengkaji, bahkan memberikan materi seperti Pak Alit di sini, pernah memberikan materi terkait ekonomi Kerti Bali, ada Ibu Adis juga, dan beberapa rekan dosen yang lain pernah memberikan materi ekonomi Kerti Bali. Dan memang saya rasa FEBP Unhi dan Unhi itu sangat cocok ketika kita membahas ekonomi Kerti Bali, di mana ekonomi Kerti Bali itu merupakan sebuah model ekonomi baru yang diluncurkan oleh Bapak Gubernur kita, di mana ekonomi Kerti Bali telah menjadi acuan Bappenas dalam melakukan transformasi ekonomi Bali. Jadi sudah ada peta jalan transformasi ekonomi Kerti Bali hingga tahun 2045. Sejauh ini kami memandang bahwa ekonomi Kerti Bali itu merupakan model baru, di mana konsep ekonomi sudah kita integrasikan dengan nilai-nilai kearifan lokal, salah satunya dengan nilai Satkerti, di mana ekonomi Kerti Bali ini merupakan sebuah paradigma baru memandang ekonomi itu ternyata ujungnya sebuah kesejahteraan. Pandangan terkait dengan kesejahteraan itu bukan hanya sifatnya material, tapi non material. Di Bali itu sangat lekat dengan istilah skala niskala, sehingga ekonomi Kerti Bali ini sangat erat kaitannya dengan bagaimana menciptakan sebuah aktivitas ekonomi untuk mencapai kesejahteraan masyarakat secara skala dan niskala. Per hari ini kita masih terutama di Kerti Bali Research Center sedang mengkaji bahasan terkait dengan niskala. Nah, itu sangat sulit sekali karena selama ini kita memandang kesejahteraan itu sifatnya material. Tapi orang Bali tidak bisa memandang kesejahteraan itu hanya material. Misalnya banyak kita lihat contoh di masyarakat. Mereka tidak memiliki pekerjaan industrial yang seperti kita ketahui saat ini, tapi mereka bahagia tinggal di desa. Apakah itu kita paksa mereka bekerja ikut di industri saat ini? Orang Bali itu sangat sulit. Kenapa? orang-orang desa di Bali itu sangat sulit diajak untuk maju. Jadi bahasanya itu bukan karena mereka malas atau tidak, tapi paradigma mereka terkait dengan ekonomi itu berbeda. Maka dari itu ketika kita ingin membangun perekonomian masyarakat yang ada di desa, perlu paradigma baru di sana. Nah, itulah yang perlu kita kaji bersama-sama, makna dari ekonomi Kerti Bali itu sendiri. Mudah-mudahan hari ini dengan pemaparan dari Prof. Morris terkait dengan wawasan beliau terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali, tentunya dari sudut pandang internasional akan menambah wawasan kita, kasanah keilmuan kita terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali. Harapan saya juga di FEBP Unhi akan melahirkan sebuah konsep-konsep baru, sebuah teori-teori baru, mungkin sebuah ilmu baru bagaimana ekonomi Kerti Bali ini ideal kita terapkan khususnya di Bali. Nah, kurang lebih itu mungkin awal pemahaman terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali. Saya rasa adik-adik mahasiswa berperan di sini, silahkan searching terkait dengan ekonomi Kerti Bali, belajar tentang ekonomi Kerti Bali sehingga apa yang dipaparkan oleh Prof. Morris nanti bisa diterima dengan baik oleh mahasiswa semuanya. Dan saya juga mengundang seluruh perbanyak pertanyaan terkait dengan materi atau topik yang telah diberikan oleh Prof. Morris nantinya. Mungkin kurang lebih seperti itu yang bisa saya laporkan, Bapak Dekan. Mudah-mudahan apa yang kita laksanakan hari ini memberikan manfaat bagi kita semua, baik itu untuk dosen, mahasiswa, dan juga masyarakat umum, karena sifatnya kita online di sini dan dipublish di Unhi TV. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. Terima kasih banyak. Saya tutup dengan Parama Santi. Om Santi 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 Om.
Demikianlah sambutan dari Ketua Kerti Bali Research Center. Selanjutnya, sambutan dan arahan dari Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia yang sekaligus membuka acara secara resmi. Kepada Bapak Dr. Putu Yudi Wijaya SEMSI, kami persilahkan.
Om Swastiastu. Yang terhormat Bapak Wakil Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis Pariwisata, para pimpinan struktural di Fakultas Ekonomi, ada Koprodi Magister Manajemen, kemudian Koprodi Sarjana Manajemen dan Akuntansi, dalam hal ini diwakili oleh Wakil Koprodi, kemudian kepala dari KBRC, serta rekan-rekan di LPPM, Bapak Ibu dosen, serta tidak lupa saya ucapkan terima kasih, thank you very much for Profesor Nicholas Morris, thank you, welcome in Hindu Indonesia University, serta para peserta yang hadir pada siang hari ini baik secara offline maupun online. Tadi sudah banyak disampaikan oleh kepala KBRC, jadi Kerti Bali Research Center. Jadi memang benar bahwa pada prinsipnya agenda ini merupakan awal kita di ekonomi, Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata dalam membuka sebuah cakrawala terkait dengan transformasi ekonomi. Mungkin sedikit kita flashback ke belakang bahwa selama ini kalau kita melihat dampak ekonomi selalu diukur dengan orientasi nominal. Jadi segala sesuatu kita melihat kesejahteraan suatu ekonomi ketika dia mampu memberikan output dari sisi nominal. Nah, permasalahannya sekarang adalah ketika itu dilakukan, tentu ada faktor lain yang harus dikorbankan. Jadi sumber daya yang ada itu dikeruk, kemudian dimanfaatkan secara untuk tujuan orientasi bisnis, sehingga pada akhirnya berdampak pada sektor lain, salah satu lingkungan. Dan ketika itu terus terjadi, maka yang terjadi adalah justru ketimpangan. Nah, pada diskusi kita hari ini kita ingin coba melihat apa yang disampaikan tadi, bahwa ada transformasi ekonomi yang terjadi. Kalau kita dulu mengorientasi ekonomi dari sudut pandang pertumbuhan secara nominal, ekonomi PDRB dan lain sebagainya, tapi kita tidak melihat bagaimana kebahagiaan, happiness dari masyarakat. Benar enggak pertumbuhan ekonomi itu mencerminkan kebahagiaan masyarakat Bali khususnya? Jadi konsepnya bahwa ekonomi itu ibarat orang Bali bilang tapak dara. Jadi konsep keseimbangan antara ke atas, ke bawah, dan ke samping. Jadi bukan semata-mata orientasi ekonomi itu bisa memberikan nilai secara tanda kutip kapital, tapi bagaimana itu bisa memberikan sebuah kontribusi bagi masyarakat secara keseluruhan dalam pemanfaatan faktor-faktor produksi yang ada. Nah, pada siang hari ini akan tentu kita kedatangan guru besar dari Ladrobe University di Melbourne, Australia. Tentu beliau akan banyak memberikan sharing knowledge, jadi sharing ilmu terkait dengan bagaimana sebenarnya peran petajalan transformasi ekonomi Bali kalau kita terapkan dengan keberadaan lokal genius yang ada di Bali. Benar nggak selama ini sederhana saja kalau boleh saya cerita, mohon maaf sedikit, saya punya cerita, ada sebuah katakanlah tempat makan, warung kecil, tapi mereka di mana warung kecil itu bisa bertahan sampai 4-5 generasi. Saya tanya, kenapa nggak buka usaha? Kalau kita bicara ekonomi modern, pasti berpikir ketika ada permintaan banyak, maka kita akan penuhi suplai itu. Tapi mereka jawabnya sederhana, saya sudah cukup dengan apa yang saya peroleh saat ini. Artinya apa? Sederhananya, jadi mereka sudah cukup puas dengan apa yang mereka peroleh, dan rasa puas ini membuat mereka menjadi bekerja lebih nyaman. Ketika mereka bekerja nyaman, mereka melakukan sesuatu dengan totalitas, dengan soulnya. Jadi hasilnya kalau orang bilang, Bali bilang taksunya muncul. Kalau orang Bali bilang. Jadi banyak, sambil contoh usaha kuliner yang bisa bertahan sampai 2-3 generasi itu masih tetap eksis sampai sekarang dengan tidak terlalu banyak jamahan modernisasi manajerialnya. Nah, ini sebagai bukti bahwa perkembangan ekonomi, transformasi ekonomi modern tidak semata-mata harus selalu diprioritaskan, tapi harus juga melihat kondisi lokal genius yang ada di daerah masing-masing. Nah, nanti mungkin akan banyak diulas oleh narasumber kita pada kesempatan pada sore hari ini. Jadi sederhana dengan satu kata, bahwa biarkan ekonomi Bali berkembang sesuai dengan kondisi sumber daya yang ada. Jangan dipaksakan bahwa ekonomi Bali itu digali sumber dayanya hanya orientasi kapital. Baik, mungkin itu sedikit dari saya pada sore hari ini, dengan mengucapkan Om Awigenam Astu. Agenda kegiatan Stadium Jenderal antara kolaborasi Fakultas Ekonomi, Bisnis, dan Pariwisata dengan Kerti Bali Research Center Unhi secara resmi saya buka. Om Santi Om. Terima kasih.
Demikianlah sambutan dari Bapak Dekan Fakultas Ekonomi, Bisnis, dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Baiklah para tamu undangan sekalian dan seluruh peserta yang hadir secara daring maupun luring, kita akan memasuki acara utama pada hari ini. Baik, untuk itu saya akan mengundang moderator untuk mengambil tempat di depan dan akan mengambil alih jalannya acara di siang hari ini. Dengan ini saya mengundang Ibu Niputu Yeni Yuliantari SPD MPD untuk mengambil alih jalannya acara. Langsung saja kepada moderator untuk waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan.
Tes. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Fine, okay. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, and then it is my pleasure to be your moderator today. I'm Niputu Yeni Yuliantari, and I would like to extend a very welcome to all of you. And we appreciate you taking your time off on your busy schedule to join us here today. Thank you very much. And then, first of all, let me introduce our speaker today. He is knowledgeable and also an expert on the topic that we are going to discuss. Yes, he is a Professor Maurice from La Trobe University, Melbourne, Australia. And for additional information, Professor Maurice is Professor Maurice is become a visiting professor on the Faculty Economic Business and Tourism. Okay. Please give applause to. Okay, thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Maurice to deliver his presentation. Okay, Professor Maurice. Okay, Professor Maurice, the floor is yours.
So can we have the slides? Thank you. I'll stand up here a bit higher. So it is a great pleasure to be back with you, and again I'm very pleased to be here as your visiting professor. As I said last time when I did a lecture in my inauguration, the transformation of Bali's economy is very important for all the people of Bali. It's also very important for the whole of Indonesia. Bali is the leading tourism area, a leading generator of income for Indonesia. Because of that, the government and Bappenas, the planning ministry, last year made a plan. It was called Transformasi Ekonomi Bali, the transformation plan for Bali. And Bappenas and the government have made Bali a top priority for recovery. And that's because Bali, as you all know, was hit very hard by COVID. The problem with Bali is that about 80% of Bali's income is dependent on tourism. And in the COVID period, nobody came. So we had a major problem. Now, in this document, Bappenas, and with the support of the governor and the local government here, have put forward what they think might happen to Bali's economy in the next few years, the next 5 years. And this slide This slide shows you what they think might happen. Now, the problem we have is that although the plan has a lot of good ideas about how to develop Bali, not much has yet been done to implement that plan. And one of the contributions that the Hindu University can make, and in particular the Faculty of Business, Economics and Tourism can make, is to help the government of Bali, the governor, and the government of Indonesia through Bappenas and other ministries implement that plan. And when I was here before, I had some discussions with you about how we could work together to help with that process. Now, I hope that isn't just your teachers. I hope that you students will also get interested in this subject, and you will try to make your own contribution to what needs to be done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain to you what I think needs to be done, and then I hope that will inspire you to do some serious work on this problem. Now, in addition to this, the governor of Bali set us another challenge. He said, Hinduism is a very strong religion with very strong lessons for how mankind should develop. And we've seen all around the world problems with the way our economies are developing, the way our societies are developing. We're seeing wars everywhere. Maybe Hinduism can provide guidance for how our economies should develop. So he set us the challenge of, can we make a Hindu version of economics? And I gave some thought to that, and I set out some ideas about how that might be done. And later in this lecture, I'm going to explain those to you and say what I think we need to do to achieve that goal as well. Now, those of you, everyone here lives in Bali, you know Bali. We've got some big problems. And if we're going to achieve the sort of growth, economic growth, that Bappenas would like us to achieve, we've got to fix these major infrastructure problems. Seem to have an error. Anyway, I'll carry on. So, we all know that Bali is not quite coping with being a major tourist destination. I'll just carry on. So, we have a road network that is unable to cope even with the level of traffic we have at the moment. If the number of tourists rises steeply, we'll have serious congestion problems. We already have them. You've only got to drive up to Canggu or somewhere, and you'll spend 1.5, 2 hours getting there. So we've got to do something about the road network and congestion. We have a serious problem with waste management. Many of the beaches are very polluted. We don't really have the ability to dispose of waste. And we know that tourists create a lot of waste. So we've got a problem. We have a serious problem with our water supply, and the water supply system needs upgrading, not only to service all the hotels and residences, but also irrigation for agriculture. If we're going to be a serious place for international people to come, we need strong internet, strong broadband. We haven't got it at the moment. The quality of internet in Bali is not good enough. It's not up to the standard. I was in Korea about 4 days ago. It's not up to that sort of standard. We need to upgrade our internet. We need to have better mobile communication in our rural areas. We need the electricity supply to be more secure. We need to stop having rolling blackouts. And we need better social infrastructure, schools, clinics and hospitals. Where's the... So that was what I was talking about, okay? So that's quite a long list of things that need attention, and it requires people like you to look carefully at those and make a contribution to how we might fix those problems. I've spent most of my career trying to improve infrastructure in developing countries, and the last 15 years I've been working on infrastructure in Indonesia, trying to introduce projects to fix some of these problems. Now, that's not our only problems. And the governor, in his speech and his papers that he's published, sets out some of the other problems we have. The development of our tourism is not well managed. We've not given enough attention to customary values, traditions, arts and culture. Sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. We've got a declining area of land for agriculture. We've got an unsustainable irrigation system. We've got aging of the agricultural workforce. We've got problems with our water system. We've got damage to our marine, lake and river ecosystems. The education and skills of Balinese workers are in general still low, so that labour productivity in Bali is also low. There's an increasing welfare gap between North and South Bali. We've got weak capacity in our government institutions, and we're not really making the contribution we should be making to the Indonesian economy. Oh dear. I won't read this out to you, but there's a very long list of other things we need to look at about how the vaccination program develops, how we emerge from COVID properly, the state of the health system, the restaffing of the Bali companies, the repair of the hotels that were mothballed during COVID. How do we bring the ex-workers back that left during COVID? Very importantly, how quickly will the trust of tourists return? How quickly will we get back our high-value tourists? Can we genuinely build Bali as a centre for the digital nomad? How quickly can we develop information technology, design, etc.? And importantly, what can be done for the increasing number of low-income and poor people in Bali? Now, one of the things that isn't very clear is whether the purchasing power of foreign tourists is in fact there. Bali's not the only, Indonesia is not the only country to have been hit by COVID. And all around the world, people have problems. Do they still have the income to travel to Bali for a holiday? Maybe not. Now, crucially, we need to move Bali up the value chain. We need somehow to establish Bali as a high-value tourist destination. We need to compete with some of the other tourist destinations that are doing it better than we are. Vietnam, Phuket, maybe Malaysia. There's a number of other places are also competing for the tourist dollar. We need to make sure that we have an offering for them, which means that they come here. I certainly won't read these out. This is taken from the governor's paper on the very long list of things that need to be done for agriculture, marine, industry, etc. But each of these things needs careful master planning, and they're all interrelated. The risks of success and failure need to be faced up to. So I think that the Hindu University and the Faculty of Business, Economics and Tourism has a great opportunity to play a leading role in this challenge. And if you can find the time, and if you can find the motivation to do that, now is the moment to do it, because Bali needs your help. It will be sad if you say, oh, I'm too busy, I haven't got the time to think about these difficult problems, and let's leave it to someone else, because then Bali will not develop as it should, and we may not see the transformation of Bali that we would all like to see. But if you agree with me that the faculty and the university has got a contribution to make, then together we need to build on the work done by Bapanas and others in the Bali Transformation Plan and on the ideas set out by the governor. I'm arguing with other people that we need a specialist implementation agency similar to the one I've worked with in Jakarta, KPPIP, to implement some of the necessary projects. And I've also argued that we need a Bali Development Fund to pay for some of the things Bali needs. Both of those are things that I think the central government may well be able to provide for us. But we need to show that we are willing to work with them and support them to make Bali development. Now, importantly, these are the things. Sorry. Dear. Yes, sorry, that was what I was talking to. Now, importantly, these are the things that I think need to be done. I think if we're going to move Bali up the value chain, we need to explore the interactions between the recovering tourism sector and Bali's traditional industries. I think the Bali brand needs to be re-established. We need to take our strengths in spirituality, traditional medicines, handicrafts, agriculture, and we need to make it relevant to tourism. Together, they then create a higher value tourist offering. We need to look carefully for quick wins, things we can do quickly which will make Bali grow. My list of that is digital nomads. I think if we can fix the broadband problems, we can attract people to bring their businesses here, live in Bali, but do worldwide business from Bali. I believe that aged care is another one that Bali would be very good at. The Balinese people are very caring people. We have a lot of, at the moment, empty hotels. We could transform some of those hotels into aged care homes. I think some sort of health and spirituality tourism, developing that would be worth doing. So there are a variety of places where quick wins would be possible, and people like you could work on one of those and make a great contribution to Bali. We need to know both what might happen and what might go wrong so we can plan, and that's why scenario planning, as I said in my last lecture, is an important component of what we need to do. We also need to create a dynamic master plan that brings all these things together. We need to work out how to develop the Bali workforce so that it's able to deliver this high quality tourism. And we need to use risk analysis, etc. Now, all of these things we know how to do. It just requires people like you to apply yourselves to actually doing it. And in this room, there are people with the skills and the ability to make a great contribution to Bali, if you can find the time. Now, I said that the governor had set us a challenge, and the challenge is that Hinduism might provide a way forward for mankind. And as you will know, Sadhguru sets out components of noble behavior. Oh dear, I keep forgetting. Sorry, I keep forgetting to check the slides. So I believe that we can develop a version of economics which is based on Hindu principles. And this slide tells us something about why that might be the case. And Balinese agriculture, marine, fishery, the people's handicraft industry, they've all got underpinnings of Hindu principles. Modern additions to this include things like smart information technology, communications, and creative ways of creating green energy. I think the key to Bali's sustainable development is to find the optimal mix between all the things Bali can do well, taking into account the risks of success and failure in an increasingly uncertain world. Now, I responded to the governor's challenge by setting out 4 things that are wrong with traditional economics. So those of you that are studying economics will know that economics is not perfect, and the last 20 years, economics has failed. The global financial crisis, many other aspects of the way Western economies are developing are wrong. And the 4 things I identified as being wrong with economics are, first of all, the neoclassical idea that supply and demand will create a fair and sustainable equilibrium. That does not seem to be correct. You cannot allow selfish people to act in their own interest and expect that the market will sort out the problems. The second problem is that numerous externalities are not properly priced by markets, crucially including environmental damage. And this has very long-term effects on health, the ecosystem, and the climate. The third problem is that most markets focus on very short time horizons, and policymakers also face short periods between elections. Liquidity and other cash constraints also may mean investors do not make optimal longer-term decisions. So markets are not good at making long-term decisions. And the fourth problem is that inequality and poverty affect the structure of society, which in turn affects the sustainability of the economic system in the long term. We are seeing throughout the world conflict and the possible disintegration of societies such as that in America. And that is partly created by the very wide inequality that America has. So not surprisingly, the poorer people in America are unhappy, and they take it out in violence and espousing ultra-right-wing causes. In the end, these problems will lead to unrest and a less stable system. So economics has not succeeded in finding a solution to those four problems. And those four problems are very important for the future of mankind. While I was in Korea, I went to a lecture by a leading Korean thinker. He thinks that the human race is on the way to extinction. He thinks that our problems are so severe that in the next 20, 30, 40 years, we will destroy ourselves. Now, I hope that isn't the case, but one of the things that we could do is try to fix our understanding of economics so that we don't end up as a race, the human race, as extinct. So what needs to be done, and I hope that it can be done at this university in this faculty, is to explain the religious, is to explain the religious literature and the philosophical underpinnings of Sadhgurti in ways which are accessible to a non-theological, economics-trained audience. We need to explain in detail how the application of the principles of Sadhgurti provide a way of fixing these four problems. And we need to use our work on the Bali transformation plan as a case study to demonstrate how the principles can be applied in a practical way to solve practical problems. In the end, the most convincing proof that Sadhgurti provides a way forward for economics will be that it works in a real-world context. And if anybody wants to follow up on anything that I've said, and that means all of you students, teachers alike, please do get in touch with me. My email, my phone are just here. I'm very happy to discuss any of this with any of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, please give applause to Professor Morris. Thank you. Okay, I agree that we need to explain our religious literature and then philosophical and the application of principle of Satkirti, and then that will be provide a way to fixing our that's for problems. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to the question and answer session. If anyone has any question, please don't forget to mention your name before starting the question. Okay? Any question? I'm sure our presenter will be pleased to answer all of your questions. Okay? Okay. Wait a moment.
Thank you. My name is Adis. I want to ask you one question about Ekonomi Karti Bali. I'm sorry if my English is not very good. How is your opinion about competitive advantage based on local resource make the product that produced in Bali can penetrate the export market? That we know in economic Karti Bali plan, master plan, agriculture is the leading sector. Jadi I want to ask you about the agriculture product in Bali, how to be success in export. Thank you, Prof.
That's a very, very helpful question. One of the problems Bali has is that its quality is not recognized. So we need to find a way of establishing the Bali brand and then protecting it. So if you look at countries like France, they protect their wine brands like Champagne, etc. But here we don't. So genuine Balinese products can be copied and then sold much cheaper by others. The Chinese can come and take a copy of our handicrafts, I was given, when I came last time, I was given a statue which was made beautifully, but it was something that you could make out of plastic, but it wasn't, because it was a genuine Bali. So we need some sort of certification process to certify genuine Bali. The same is true of agriculture, of organic agricultural products, that we need to show that they have genuine quality and they're genuinely pure. So the Balinese agricultural system is better than the intensive agriculture of other countries, and it produces a better product. We need to prove that to the world and protect it. And then maybe we can establish a competitive advantage for that. But it's a very good question, because it's crucial that we do somehow move Bali up the value chain and then keep it there. Yes.
Please give applause. Okay, thank you, Bu Adis, for your questions. Okay, next, maybe, okay. Please wait a moment.
Check. Thank you for the times and welcome to Hindu University for the Prof. Nicholas Morris. And I'm such a pleasure. Sorry. I'm such a pleasure to be here to explain my question to you. And I wanna one until two questions for you about the economic culture Bali. The first, my question is. For the vaccinations, I see your presentation is very well, but I wanna give you questions about the vaccination program, but a booster will involve. How to big impact the vaccinations until the third step until first the vaccination until booster. How to big impact for the economic tourism in Bali after that? Because you know what? Because in there's so many peoples in outside have a big impact for the COVID-19, especially for the tourism industry. How to big impact for this after vaccines and after booster, and what is the big in general influence economic culture Bali in a Bali society? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We still don't know whether COVID-19 is over. We have new strains of COVID-19 that are emerging, and many countries are finding new waves of COVID infection. In Melbourne, where I come from, we now have a peak again of infections. Our hospitals are full, and we have a shortage of medical staff. So we're seeing in China that their zero COVID policy is struggling, and they're seeing emergence of, and all over the world there are new things emerging. We know about vaccinations that they wear off. So if you had your vaccination 6 months ago, maybe now it isn't so effective. So you need a booster. You may need boosters for many, many times. I've had 4 so far. So I've had the 2 original and then 2 more boosters. They say I will need another one in 3 months' time. So that's 5 vaccinations that I will need. So we need to protect ourselves from COVID. We need a program that doesn't just stop. It's got to go on probably for another year or 2 years to stop the re-emergence. The other thing is that the new strains may not, the old vaccinations may not work with those new strains. And so we may need to revise the vaccination that we give people, which may mean we have to vaccinate the whole population again very soon. So these are all quite big challenges that face us in the future. In terms of recovery from it, we now have much better treatment drugs than we had. So if you do catch COVID, you're less likely to die because we do have much better treatment options. So providing you've got a good health service, the probability of death is lower. But you still have problems with what we call long COVID, which are some health problems that persist for a long time. For example, there is a link now being established between COVID and Alzheimer's disease, so that it's affecting people's brains and maybe their memories and their, so for some parts of the population there may be effects that we don't yet really understand that are still emerging. So these are all things. This means we need a very serious, we can't just say, oh, COVID's over, because it's not. We have to, next 2 years at least, we've got to treat it very seriously.
Yes. Okay, thanks for the explanation. Pak Alit, how is it? Is that clear enough? Okay, thank you. Another questions, maybe? Okay, the girls. We have a lot of questions now.
Hello, good afternoon, Prof. My name is Dea. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is wrong because I'm not passive in English. I want to ask you about how the development models, the industrialization process, indirect to create a balanced, fair, and non-destructive economy, natural, physical, environment, and socio-cultural value. Thank you.
Would you like to repeat once again, Ade? Slower.
Okay. I want to ask you about how the developed model, the industrialization process, indirected to create a balanced, fair, and non-destructive economy, natural, physical, environment, and socio-cultural value. Thank you.
So I think what you're asking about is how do we adjust the industrialization process to create a sustainable outcome for that takes into account the environmental damage, etc. So the first thing is we need to be very clear about the effects. So if we know that a particular process creates a particular problem, then we need to make sure that we price that problem into the decision. So we cannot allow companies to pollute without there being a penalty for them doing that. And historically, we've not been very strong in preventing them from doing that. Now, obviously, climate change is one of the big areas where our economic activity creates a long-term problem. Now, what the world is trying to do is to make people change what they do, how they do the industrial process to reduce carbon outputs. And there has been some success in persuading countries to do that. Unfortunately, countries are not very good at implementing low carbon outcomes. Indonesia is a good example where although we've made promises for low carbon, we're very unlikely to meet them. So we need to be very proactive about things like renewable technologies, solar, wind, and reducing our dependence on coal, for example. And we need also in transport to try to reduce our dependence on diesel for our distribution systems and move over to something like more electric vehicles or certainly hybrids. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. Part of it is regulation and part of it is pricing, to get the prices right, to give people incentives to not do the damage.
Okay, maybe I can give saya bisa simpulkan sedikit, jadi bagaimana kita bisa membuat orang-orang itu berubah ke arah yang lebih baik, kemudian juga menggunakan ke arah untuk lebih penghijauan lah seperti itu. Gitu. Gimana Adik Dea? Jelas? Oke. Another, next. Pak, oke deh. Oke, silakan Bu Iya duluan.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Prof. Morris. Nice to meet you again in second event. Now I have one question about our concept in Ekonomi Kerti Bali. As we know, tourism is a priority sector in Bali. But for today, our government, with the new concept, Ekonomi Kerti Bali, tourism is the last priority. Yeah. How to change the mindset in our local community about it, and how we make our community for they want to work in agriculture sector. Thank you.
So your question is about why the government doesn't like tourism, is that? Because I don't think anyone's suggesting Bali should stop doing tourism.
Yeah, Prof. Morris, I just want to make sure about my question. How we change our mindset in our local community if agriculture sector is better than tourism sector. Thank you.
I see. What I think is that you need to make the sectors work together. So you take the traditional sectors like agriculture, spiritual, healing, traditional medicine, and you try to make a tourism version of those, and you build tourist things that rely on, so your tourism is supporting agriculture rather than fighting against it. So you try to create synergies between the traditional industries and tourism. You're never going to get Bali so that it has no tourism, because 80% of our income at the moment is tourist. That's a bit high because tourism is a risky sector, etc. But what we need to do is we need to find areas of tourism that work well with our traditional industries. And I think it's things like spirituality, healing, probably high quality agriculture, which can work together. So if we are offering really high quality food from our agricultural sector, people come to Bali for that and its healing properties, then that reinforces the agricultural sector as well. So you try to, so it's really building synergy is the key.
So tourism should support the agriculture for now. Okay, try to. Okay, next questions. Pak Ferry, silakan.
Okay, I will know your opinion about, I think Ekonomi Kerti Bali not just about transformation sector, tapi I think Ekonomi Kerti Bali is a paradigma transformation. Kerti Bali is want to change about the material or economic in GDP atau GNP. But Ekonomi Kreatif Bali, I think, want to measurement ekonomi in happiness. How about the paradigma in happiness economic in international? And how confident we are develop that paradigma in the world gitu. How about how you think? How we confident that we develop our paradigma to introduce about economic Kreatif Bali in the world, or economic Kreatif Bali just not in GDP or GNP, but we measure the happiness atau the real economy in life. I think I think that. Okay, thank you.
I think I've understood. So, what I tried to say at the end of my talk was that economics is not just about GDP, money, total amount of output. It's about how mankind interacts with the rest of mankind and nature in the longer term. And you're quite right that happiness is quite an important part of that. Also, things like inequality, poverty, etc. are very important. So we need our societies to be harmonious, so that we don't get riots and wars and trade disputes and all the things that we're seeing, and we also don't get the bad behavior of the banks and the selfishness. So somehow we need to bring almost this spirituality that Kreatif Bali has and make it part of the way people interact with each other, including the way they interact over money and economics and so on. And the problem with economics is that it was captured by people that didn't care about people. If they just thought, all you have to do is make dollars, stop. That's it, that's economics. It's not true. Economics is about society and how society works. And as you say, now there are branches of economics, the ones I like, they're called welfare economics, or and there are people that spend their whole lives working on anti-poverty programs and so on. So it's not the whole of economics. There are areas, but certainly the social parts of economics are very important because they're what stops all the conflict from destroying the economy. So if you want a long-term sustainable future, you need to bring in all the more spiritual happiness, interpersonal things that Kreatif Bali represents. So that's why, so I do believe that there is a Hindu version of economics for us to define. We just need to work on, because if you'd said that to an American, they'll laugh at you. So we need to prove it to them. And we need to show them that their type, you know, the Chicago School or something, their type of economics is responsible for most of the problems that we have in the world today. I'm not saying it created Putin or anything, but it's but a lot of the problems we have are the result of inequality, the breakdown of society, the unfairness, selfishness. If we can remove some of those, then we maybe can have a more harmonious future, and that would then mean that nations would work better together and so on. So I think it's a big task, but it's worth trying.
Okay, thank you, Professor Morris. Okay, so next questions? Or no? Okay. While we wait for another question, may I ask about what is young generation, like the student in university, can do to support this ekonomi Kerti Bali, from the simple things maybe, what they can do?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm now very old, and I've had 40 years of being an economist. So I was your age when in 1970. So yes, so I'm now 69. So I've been. What I did with my career is I learnt economics, and then I tried to apply economics to fixing world problems like poverty and problems with water supply, problems with aged care. So I think one of the things young people can do is to collect the skills, yes, and then so teach themselves, and then use those skills to try to fix some of the problems the world has. But the second thing you can do is try to interact with your friends in a sensible way. So try to look at the problems the world has and work out how you can do something to improve them. Now it could be that you work with an environmental group, or you work with a charity that tries to help poor people, or you work in a clinic, or there are lots of places where you can do voluntary work that helps other people. And if everybody did a small thing like that, then the world would get better. When I was a kid, when I was your age, I used to volunteer and I cooked meals for the homeless people in Oxford. That was my little contribution. So I used to go every night and I used to make food for the people that were homeless in Oxford. You know, you can do small things like that. If everybody did that, then the world would be better. Yes.
Okay, thanks for your suggestion. So mungkin anak-anak muda nanti, saran dari Profesor Morris untuk membantu ya ekonomi Kerti Bali ini, kalian mungkin bisa dari hal-hal terkecil, misalnya menjadi volunteer untuk orang-orang yang tidak mempunyai rumah, membagikan makanan mungkin ke mereka, dan juga kalian bisa meningkatkan kemampuan kalian juga untuk membantulah mengatasi masalah-masalah yang mungkin ada di sekitar kalian gitu, dan berinteraksi juga dengan teman-teman tentang apa sih yang dibutuhkan di lingkungan di sekitar kalian gitu. Jadi kalau dengan hal-hal kecil itu kita pasti bisa membuat ekonomi dan atau Bali untuk menjadi lebih baik lagi. Okay, please give applause to Professor Morris. Thank you. So is there any question? Another? Okay. Mic-nya Bu Dayu Widani. Okay. Is there a question?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Yani, as a moderator. Prof. Morris, let me introduce myself. My name is Dayu Widani. I'm one of the lecturer of Faculty of Economic, Business, and Tourism. Okay. As a lecturer, we have a responsibility to act the Tridharma perguruan tinggi. The one of the three dharma perguruan tinggi is the community service. Yeah, and we have to responsibility to do that at the every semester. We do the community service, and we did it. I think maybe the little of implementation of economic Kerti Bali. My question, maybe what other contribution that we can do to make the program government program maybe better than as usual we did before. Maybe you understand what I mean?
I haven't really understood the question. I heard that you do community service, which is great.
We all the
Yes,
lecture.
that's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
But your question was, how can we improve the government, or? So what can we do with the community service to?
Another action maybe, because one of our program in university, Tridharma Perguruan Tinggi, as our responsibility, we did it every semester about community service.
My belief about universities is that they're here to provide information. They're here to provide knowledge for the community. Now, clearly you're paid to do lectures, and if you're a research person, you maybe have a research program that someone pays you for. But there's also what we call pro bono work, where you do work without being paid for that is helping with the development of the society. So with your community service, you could take a problem, maybe how do we make aged care work in Bali, or how do we improve the care for young mothers, or something. You take a problem, you apply your skills, which are as a lecturer, knowledge about business, and you try to find a solution to that problem. And you do that without somebody paying you to do it. You just do it. And then you publicize your solution. You maybe, if you've got the contacts, you maybe go and see the governor and explain your solution and try to persuade him to do it. So if it's set up a clinic for young mothers, then you try to make that happen. In my life, I've worked on, for example, aged care, so care of the elderly, and I also gave my time to a charity on care of the elderly. So the charity then tried to help old people with practical solutions to their problems. So you can do that kind of, but importantly, you must use your skills to analyze whatever problem you want to fix, find a solution, and then do your best to get it implemented, maybe by lobbying the governor or lobbying Bapanas or somebody to try to make it happen. That's all any of us can do, I think.
We did already.
Oke, mungkin bisa untuk lebih jelasnya mungkin bisa ditanyain ke pemerintahnya, tapi dari hal kecil yang bisa kita lakukan itu charity ya, amal ya. Oke, udah you? Is that clear? Oke, it's clear enough. Okay, another question, maybe the last question? No. Okay, no question ya. So, is that clear enough ya? Professor Mari, do you wanna adding something? No, clear. Okay. Okay, please give applause to Professor Morris. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of our presentation. We would like to extend our gratitude to the presenter for the informative and interesting talk, and also the audience for their active participation. Okay, I'm sorry. Hopefully, the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. Okay, thank you and goodbye. Okay, thanks for the time ya.
Baik, kami mengundang untuk seluruh dosen yang hadir untuk foto bersama narasumber kita pada hari ini. Untuk itu, waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan. Kepada Bapak dan Ibu, kami persilahkan untuk kembali ke tempat. Baik, terima kasih kepada Ibu Moderator. Mengingat kembali untuk peserta yang bergabung via Zoom dan YouTube, serta yang hadir di sini, bagi yang belum mengisi dan belum melakukan absensi, silakan untuk melakukan absensi untuk pemenuhan syarat mendapatkan poin di buku SKP. Terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada seluruh undangan serta peserta yang sudah bergabung dalam acara Kuliah Umum Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis dan Pariwisata Universitas Hindu Indonesia. Semoga apa yang telah kita dipaparkan oleh para narasumber hari ini dapat memberikan manfaat untuk kita semua, dan sampai jumpa kembali di acara-acara kami selanjutnya yang tentunya di acara yang lebih menarik dan lebih seru pastinya. Saya memohon maaf apabila ada pelaksanaan acara ini masih ada kekurangan. Saya Mawar Indah pamit undur diri. Om Santi 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 Om. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama budaya, Shalom, salam kebajikan, dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua.